MLB is still going on. Had a nice football Sunday. Adam had an even nicer football Sunday. How you doing, Adam?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, it was nice to have a good week one so that, at least when the next 6 weeks suck, I can still look back and feel good about that. So yesterday was fun. How did it go for you?
Yeah, it was good. The main slate wasn't great for me, but I played Showdown on the night slate, and that ended up being good. I split first in a couple tournaments, like the
Nice.
lower dollar tournaments, so made up for the main slate losses plus a little bit more. So um, we got a two gamer tonight. We got the Showdown in the late game as well. So NFL is not done, but we do have some MLB contests to talk about. Um, and then since we are presented by Yahoo, I think we should probably talk about the 150 max that they're rolling out. Let me pull this up on screen for week two. So we of course love Yahoo. They've been doing this 10 max, $25, I think it was yesterday. Put a couple entries into that. I didn't do well at all, but Adam had some success in the Yahoo NFL tournaments yesterday. What do you think of the new 150 max they're running out here?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I mean, I personally am happy about it because I would just like to play more lineups there, and now I can. I'm interested to see if there ends up being a CSV edit or if it's something that's going to be that you have to do by hand and is going to take like all of Sunday morning. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy about it.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting way to attract more people because, um, first of all, I think it's no management fee, as you're seeing right there. They also have a 6K guaranteed $3 no management fee that is a 10 max. So they're not going away from the 10 max. It looks like just for this tournament only, 150 max. The first time I've seen that on Yahoo, I think probably the first tournament they've had over there that's a 150 max. So doing it for everyone. They've got a little bit of something for every type of player. If you like single entry, they've got some decent sized contests over there. They've got a $10 10 max, $3 10 max. When they do have a management fee, it's about as low as you can find across the industry. So we'll keep an eye on that and keep an eye out for if there's going to be a possible CSV edit, and if so, what that's going to do, because I'm sure that's going to attract a lot more attention. People like the CSV edit. Adam and myself use it every single day. All right, baseball time. So we've got an 8 game slate. We don't quite have ownership just yet. I'm sure that'll be coming at some point soon. Um, Pretty decent pitching on this slate. I don't know about the matchups being that great, but it looks like we've got a couple of big name pitchers. So that's better than what me and Adam have had the last few times we've been on the show together. But let's get into it. Let's go Atlanta and Philadelphia. We have Mike Fultonevich going up against Aaron Nola. Fulte at 7,500, Nola 10-4. Looking at these guys on Yahoo, we've got Fulte at 33, Nola at $50 flat. Nola was coming up for me a lot when I was crunching for the cheat sheets this morning. Is he a guy you're interested in here, Adam, against Atlanta?
Pretty tough spot against the Braves, but only a 4 implied run total for Atlanta. So getting some respect from Vegas. I don't really love him at 10-4 on DraftKings. I think 50 on Yahoo. Still just really close to Jacob deGrom in salary. So I think that's kind of tough. I wouldn't be surprised if I get to some just because, it is an 8 game slate, but the matchup here does scare me a bit.
Right. I think he's probably more viable on Yahoo at $50 because just the ceiling for the highest priced pitchers isn't as high. I mean, the only guy I've seen priced way up on Yahoo these days is Verlander, who gets over $60. But like DeGrom at 53 and Nola at 50, I think you can make pretty good lineups with both of those guys if you just take a value team or a few value bats. So I like Nola a lot over on Yahoo. Fulte on the other side, 7,500 going up against the Phillies. Not a guy I'm looking to play. Do you see anything you like here about Fulte against the Phillies?
No, not particularly. Just a pretty average pitcher, I think. The price tag is okay as a mid-range option. The mid-range on this slate isn't really great. I don't see anyone that really jumps out in that range. So from a roster construction standpoint, I think you could get to some of Fulte just because you need a pitcher in that price range sometimes. But Pretty mediocre Philadelphia lineup. Not great, not bad. Park is conducive for hitting, but it looks like it's only 70 degrees, so that's not the worst. Just kind of lukewarm on Fulton.
Yes, low totals around the board. When I was just looking to see who the highest implied totals were on the slate, we've got only a couple teams that are above 5 runs right now. A lot of teams in like the mid fours, maybe upper fours, but you're seeing no team above 5.5 runs right now, which is the first time we've probably seen that since April when the weather was a little bit cooler around the U.S. So just be aware, you're not going to be seeing the huge totals, so you might be having to stack up a team like the Phillies with the 4.5 implied total. Do you like bats against Fulte here? Any lefty power bats at all?
Yeah, I think that if Harper's in the lineup, he's a good play. I think that Real Muto is always a good catcher option, and I like Corey Dickerson, probably leading off. Pretty fairly priced, doesn't strike out a lot, does have power. So the top of the lineup, I think, is pretty good for Philadelphia.
Yeah, I like Harper and Dickerson a ton. Assuming Harper's going to be in, I think, I thought I read something today that they expect him to be back in the lineup, but of course we'll know hours out before the game. Any hitters against Nola, or are you not going there?
Probably not going there. The pricing's not even super appealing. Acuna 5K, Albies 4,500, Freeman 5K. Not overpriced, but you're not getting much of a discount for the matchup, so probably not getting there.
I'd be okay using Freeman if Nola was getting a bunch of ownership, but I think on DraftKings you're going to see DeGrom get the most in this upper tier, so I don't know that we're going to need to worry about leveraging off of Nola all that much. Let's go to Milwaukee and Miami. We have a 5.4 implied total here for the Brewers, 3.7 for the Marlins. Jordan Lyles going up against Robert Duggar, Bobby Duggs, $5,500 for Duggar, going up against Milwaukee. I mean, we don't think this guy's any good, right? But this is probably just a price play you're going to get to.
Yeah, I don't think he's very good. I don't think he's awful. Just probably a below average major league pitcher. Not a great matchup against Milwaukee, but the game is in Miami. Still a 5.5 implied run total for the Brewers. No game in Coors or Texas tonight, so not sure how much we'll need the savings on Duggar. But anytime you get a cheap pitcher in Miami, he's at least viable.
Yeah, I think the only team that I'm looking at, just glancing at the pricing and the projected lineups, is maybe Houston. I mean, Boston and the Yankees are playing each other. We'll get to that in a bit, but I don't see like a team that's way priced up that we're going to be having to jam in. Like you mentioned, no Coors, no Texas. So maybe we won't even need Duggar. I'd be fine not getting to him. I don't think he's all that great. I don't think the spot is very good against Milwaukee for a guy that we don't expect to be a high strikeout pitcher against this scary Brewers team, even in this park. So what about Lyles, though, on the other side? 8,200 against Miami. We love pitchers against Miami. It seems like he's probably going to be a guy that gets owned quite a bit across the board. Do you think this is a spot where, let's say Lyles is at like 20% ownership, do you think you would get there?
Yeah, I think so. It's a good park. It's a solid pricing on Lyles. 8,200 isn't, I mean, it doesn't jump off the page as being like egregiously underpriced, but it's also not like the $9,800 Chris Bassett against the Tigers the other day. 38 on Yahoo is, kind of the same thing. And Lyles has posted really good strikeout numbers against right-handed hitters in particular this season. I'm having trouble getting the numbers to load, but going from memory, I think he's between like 25 and 26% strikeout percentage against right-handed hitters this season. And 25.9%. And Miami's going to have a lot of righties in their lineup because they really have no choice. You'll probably have like 6, including the pitcher. So I think it's a really good spot for Lyles. I think that in that mid-range between like him and Fultonevich, I would much rather get the Lyles.
Yeah, I think it looks like a pretty appealing spot here with the park. About as safe of a matchup as you can have, a righty going up against Miami in Miami. And you mentioned that success he's having against righties. So I'm fine with him at 8,200 as long as the ownership's at a reasonable level. There are some viable pivots in this range. Like, if he's going to get a ton more ownership than a guy like Greinke, maybe that's a spot where I start to pivot away from the Lyles ownership. But we'll see where he ends up in our first couple of runs of ownership this morning. What about bats here? Brewers' second highest implied total on the slate. I don't really love them here in Miami, but maybe you're seeing something different.
I think that it's a pretty good spot, and they're really cheap. Like if Trent Grisham's at the top of this lineup, he's 3,200 on DraftKings. He's $8 on Yahoo. On FanDuel, he's 2,600. So he'd be one of the best value hitters on the slate if he's in the lineup. Grandal's still underpriced. It's just a really cheap team. Travis Shaw's 2,200 on DraftKings. That it makes no sense. I know he's been bad in the majors this year, but it seems like he's fixed whatever his issue was at AAA. His numbers there look much better. So I just think that it's really, really good value on Milwaukee. And if they aren't going to get a ton of ownership, then I'd be really interested. But looking at their pricing, I think there's a good chance that it ends up being a team that maybe gets a little bit too much ownership.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at as well. You mentioned Grisham off the top of the lineup. That's certainly a cash option, as is Grandal, depending on the site. I think he's pretty cheap over on Yahoo as well, 4,500 on DK. I'd still be fine paying for him there. Catching is not very good today, to put it lightly. So you've got like Grandal and Sanchez at the top tier. I'd be looking to pay up as much as possible. So there are certainly some Brewers bats I like at the top of this lineup. I just think the stack as a whole might get a little bit too much ownership when you've got Shaw at 22 and Perez and Spangenberg. They were guys that were all coming up in crunches when I was just running baseline projections. So I think they're going to be pretty popular. Them and maybe one other team tonight is going to get a lot of they're going to be like the optimizer plays, talking about the Cleveland Indians. What about Brewers bats going up against Lyles? Anyone you see as a potential leverage spot?
Not really. Isan Diaz is a good value, 2,600, probably batting second at second base, but it's more of a price play than anything. He projects as slightly below average hitter right now, and it's not a good park. Kind of the same thing goes for Neil Walker, but you probably just don't need that much value on this slate.
I like it. Let's go to the Yankees and the Red Sox. We've got James Paxton going up against Eduardo Rodriguez. 10-8 for Paxton, 9-5 for Erod. We've got a 4.9 implied total here for the Yankees, 4.7 for the Red Sox. Two relatively high totals for this slate. Do you like either pitcher here, at least on DraftKings specifically?
Not really.
I don't blame you. They both look overpriced. If you just look at their implied totals compared to the other guys in their price range, implied totals against. Plus, neither of these guys are. I think both these guys are good pitchers, but I don't think it's a good spot for either of these guys, strikeouts or power wise. I think the blow up risk is there on both sides. So even though the weather's good, like this is not a spot I'm looking to take pitchers at least on DraftKings specifically.
Yeah, like I think they're two of the more talented pitchers on the slate, but it's just really, really difficult matchups, and the pricing doesn't really account for it.
Yep. On Yahoo, both of these guys priced a little bit better. $39 for Erod, $40 for James Paxton. I mean, I'd probably go with Erod there if I had to choose one of them, but I'd still be looking to get into like the Bumgarner range, the Greinke range, even drop down a couple dollars to Lyles. So going to be tough for me to get to either of these guys, even though they're more viable on Yahoo, in my opinion. Do you like bats here on either side?
I think a lot there will depend on ownership, because neither of Paxton or Rodriguez are guys that I love targeting bats against, but it is two really high upside offenses, of course, with the Yankees and Red Sox. So anytime that they're going to be relatively low owned, especially on an 8-game slate, they become interesting in tournaments. The pricing on the Yankees is really good too. On DraftKings, there's nobody over 5K. So you're getting a sub 5K Sanchez at catcher, Glaber at 4,400, Judge at 46. Those are all really solid prices against a pitcher in Rodriguez that's good, but he's not an ace level pitcher or anything like that. The Boston bats are cheap also. Mookie and JD both below 5K on DraftKings. Bogart's the only hitter above 5K. Paxton, I think, is a great pitcher, obviously, but just such a talented lineup that if people aren't going to go there for bats, I will.
Yeah, I'm exactly on the same page. If this is not going to be a spot where people are looking to stack either team up, it's still a pretty favorable park. And despite the great pitching, like the talent on both sides, there's a ton of talented hitters on both sides as well. So deep lineups, both sides, and good pricing as well. So I hope this game goes a little bit overlooked from a hitting perspective because there is a lot to like. $4,400 Gleiber, probably my favorite play over on DraftKings, but just value all the way around. Anything else you want to mention before moving on here?
Nope.
Arizona and the New York Mets. We've got Merrill Kelly going up against Jacob deGrom. Kelly at 6K, deGrom at 11.2 on Yahoo. deGrom only $53, pretty affordable. Kelly at $31. I have to imagine both of these guys are going to be fairly popular. Kelly just because he's going to be a pay down option on both DraftKings and Yahoo, and then deGrom because he's the best pitcher on the slate, and it looks like a pretty decent spot if you just look at the implied total against. I don't know if it's an elite strikeout matchup, but what are you doing with both of these guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think the strikeout matchup sucks for deGrom. There's just not strikeouts in this lineup, but Jacob deGrom is one of the best pitchers in baseball. He's tied with Bieber for the highest strikeout percentage on the slate, second to Bieber in Sierra, second in K-minus BB percentage. I mean, he's obviously just really good, and the Diamondbacks offense is below average in terms of production. So you're really just hoping that deGrom's stuff weighs out over the ability of guys like Dyson and Marte and Flores to put the ball in play. So I think that if he were like 12-2 or 62 on Yahoo or something like that, then the strikeout matchup would become prohibitive. But I think he's cheap enough where I'm willing to take my chances.
Yeah, you're not going to see deGrom project as like a great value because you usually don't when guys are this highly priced on DraftKings. But I think he's going to lead the slate in raw points, and I think I'm going to be able to get up to him just looking at the pricing elsewhere and looking at a couple crunches that I did this morning. So I love deGrom. I'd love to get all my lineups with deGrom just because he's the best pitcher, but I think I'm probably looking at 40-50% deGrom, and the field is probably going to be somewhere around there as well, if I had to guess. On DraftKings, on Yahoo, he's going to be probably even chalkier because his price is not prohibitive at all, and there's a ton of value all over the place. But not worried about playing chalk with a guy like deGrom. Merrill Kelly, on the other hand, 6K. Let's put him at like 15-20% ownership, somewhere in there, because I think he's probably going to be in there. Do you like Mets bats against Kelly if he's going to be chalky?
Yeah, I do. The Mets are just a team that I really don't like taking pitching against because they have a pretty nice combination of guys that put the ball in play, so it limits strikeout upside, and then also above average hitters like McNeil, Alonso, Conforto, Ramos, Cano is back. JD Davis has made improvements this year. So has Rosario. Nimmo's back. It's not a very good lineup to take pitchers against, I don't think. And when that pitcher is Merrill Kelly, it's even scarier. So I do like the Mets bats. I don't think Kelly is any good. I think that pitching, while Citi Field's not a great hitter's park, I think it is better for hitters than Chase Field is. So it's a bit of a downgrade for Kelly. He's allowed a 199 expected ISO to lefties this year, 215 to righties. He struck out 22.5% of righties, 16.5% of lefties. So I think it's just a pretty appealing spot for the Mets, like top to bottom.
Yeah, I really, really like the Mets. So I'm hoping Kelly is the chalky low-tier option. Maybe would make sense to go to a guy like Duggar as a pivot and like a single entry or something like that. But I think just the implied total against is going to be appealing for some people, even though Kelly's coming off that massive performance, I think, isn't he? Wasn't that against the Padres? Was that his last start or two starts ago?
Yeah, it was his last start, if I remember right. I think his fastball velocity's also been trending up. I'm trying to get that pulled up now, but I remember seeing a tweet about it. So I'll dig into it before I write the deep dive article, and if I see anything that makes me actually like him, I'll be sure to mention it.
Yeah, deep dive article for anyone that doesn't know. Premium piece that is written by Adam these days because Laffy's doing a lot of NFL stuff. Adam digs into a bunch of pitchers on the slate that he thinks are relevant to talk about, good things and bad things, lists the pros and cons, and of course cites some advanced numbers that people like. And then he gives his hitters as well, some of his favorite guys on the Fantasy Cruncher cheat sheet. So pretty good article. Our premium subs really enjoy that. So just another reason to use promo code MLB Strategy for 50% off your first month of any Osmo Plus monthly package. I think we kind of covered it. Well, do we want to mention any bats? It is a shorter slate. Do we want to mention any bats you have interest in against deGrom?
No.
Neither do I. All
Man,
right.
Kettle Marte is 5K on DraftKings. Who do they think he is?
It's unreal. He's been priced up like since June like
Yeah,
that. He's
yeah, like
23 on Yahoo
he's
too.
good.
Yeah.
But
Um,
yeah, it's been like every slate, even when the Diamondbacks are in good spots. It's like, oh well, Kettle Marte is $6,000.
dude, he's raking. Wow,
Yeah,
he's got 4 homers in his last 6, 3 games with at least 3 RBIs in that time. Um, I never look at season long numbers, but he's like when I look at stuff at the end of the season, it'll be surprising. I know Domingo Santana was leading the MLB in RBIs for a while there. Like they're just weird names that you wouldn't
yeah.
expect.
Anzer Alberto is competing for the American League batting title.
Actually, he,
Yeah,
that's so weird. He's like a guy. I mean, I play him sometimes, but like it's just so weird the differences between these season long counting stats that are referred to on the broadcasts and then like the stuff that we think actually matters. Oakland and Houston, we're over the halfway point right now. Mike Fiers going up against Zach Greinke, 7,800 for Fiers. Brutal spot going against Houston. Fiers is one of these guys that I think he hasn't lost a start in maybe the whole season or something like that. Like, or since early in the season. I heard a weird stat about Fiers. I'm going to try to find that while you talk about this game. Do you have any interest in Greinke? 47 on Yahoo, 8,400 on DraftKings.
yeah. I think it's an interesting spot. I think the price tag is too cheap for his talent level, and it's like a weird spot because normally Greinke is priced above his strikeout numbers, but in line with how good he is at preventing runs. And it just ends up being someone that I don't like to roster in DFS because of that. But that's not really the case here. 8,400 for Greinke is a pretty solid price point. 47 for him on Yahoo is fine. It's not a very good matchup against Oakland. They don't have a ton of strikeouts in their lineup, but Greinke's a good pitcher. I think that I would probably play ownership between him and Jordan Lyles. Like I think the spot's better for Lyles, but I think that Greinke, of course, is a better pitcher than Lyles, so they project pretty similarly to me.
Yeah, I like Greinke quite a bit. If there is a big discrepancy in the ownership between Lyles and Greinke, I'd be more than happy taking a little bit of a stance, getting more Greinke than Lyles. So the stat about Fiers is, and I think it's still live because the A's won his last start as well, so it's still going. 11 straight wins, 11-game win streak. He's 13-3 on the season. Maybe you told me that. I can't remember who it was, but
that he hasn't lost a game.
yeah, he hasn't lost a game. So he was 2-3 and hasn't lost a game since. Like unreal. These it's just baseball's so weird, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think this is a pretty good spot where he gets his first loss in forever. Houston bats, where do they rank as far as your top stacks if you had to choose right now?
So I mean, Fiers is the fly ball pitcher that struggles with right-handed power. You're getting Springer, Altuve, Bregman at the top, not to mention Brantley and Alvarez, obviously. So I think Houston's a good stack. I think that the pricing is pretty affordable. It's as a full stack, it's affordable because you have some really cheap guys mixed in with the Springer, Bregman, Alvarez expensive salaries. I think that they probably are my number one stack in terms of like who I think is most likely to be the highest scoring team. I think that if they're going to get a lot of ownership, then I'd be fine going to teams like the Mets or the Brewers.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be owned. What's that?
That's it, or the Boston game.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be owned like the Brewers and Cleveland right now. But if I'm wrong, maybe go to one of those other two teams. I like them as I think my favorite stack right now. You mentioned the righty power against Fiers. They've also got a lefty I'm really interested in Alvarez at 5,500. Basically every site. I love that he's priced up. Just a massive upside bat in the middle of an already good Astros lineup, and then some cheap guys at the bottom as well, but not quite as cheap as some other spots that are going to be trendy tonight. What about Oakland bats going up against Greinke? The K percentage is lower for Greinke this season, but is this a spot where you think you need to target any bats against him?
I don't think so. Chris Davis is still super cheap. Chris Davis hasn't been good this year, obviously, and we're kind of running out of time for that to turn around. But we've talked about it before. His underlying numbers seem fine, so it's really weird that he's having such a bad season. And I think that he does give you some upside at that price point. But in general, Greinke's just not a guy that I really want to take hitters against.
Yep. Davis, 3,300. I think that's a pretty good call. Let's move it on to Pittsburgh and San Francisco. Trevor Williams going up against Madison Bumgarner. Williams at 6,300, Bumgarner 9,200. We've got the best pitching environment on the slate tonight in San Francisco here. I don't know how chalky Bumgarner is going to be because of the difficulty of the strikeout matchup for Pittsburgh. Do you think you're going to get to a lot of Bumgarner tonight?
Yeah, I think so. He's projecting pretty well for me right now, at least. Like, I think I would rather get $9,200 Bumgarner than $10,400 Nola, for example. Not the best strikeout matchup, like you said, but the Pirates hitters also aren't that good against left-handed pitching. It's a team that just sets up better against right-handed pitching. You're getting a great park in San Francisco. Bumgarner, of course, puts up much better numbers there, as we would expect. 3.3 implied run total for the Pirates. So Bumgarner's never a pitcher that I love rostering, but I think that he kind of just stands out at his price point.
Yeah, I hope I get to a lot of him because I'd love to just have a pitcher in here at a mid-tier price tag on two pitcher sites that that seems pretty safe just because of the park and because he's been good this season. The bottom of the lineup maybe a little bit appealing for Bumgarner. A couple lefties and Moran and Frazier expected to be in, plus the pitcher spot. So I don't think it's a terrible spot for Bumgarner by any means. I mean, it's a 3.3 implied total against, so you can certainly play him here. I just wonder if I get to more of Bumgarner than a guy like Greinke and Lyles, but we'll see how that shakes out once we get our tools loaded up on the site. Trevor Williams at 6,300. I wonder, do you think he's going to be chalky here, and do you have interest in playing him if he is chalky?
Yeah, I think he will be chalky. He's projecting well in the stuff that I'm looking at, and the park obviously draws people there. I think that he's my preferred value pitcher, but he's also not a good pitcher. So if there's going to be a lot of ownership there, you can go elsewhere. You can take a chance on. The thing is, I like him so much more than Merrill Kelly. I like him more than Duggar. So kind of a spot where maybe I just don't get to that price range, but if I do, I think that he is the best option.
Lower total against for Williams compared to a guy like Duggar or Kelly. So, he's going to be in that range. He's going to be in that mix of guys at the bottom that people are using. And we saw what can happen when Trevor Williams chalk gets fired up. He was 30+% last start out, I think. And he ended up salvaging it. But I think he started off really poorly or something like that against Miami. I don't know. He's an okay pitcher in a decent park against a team that I'm not that worried about taking cheap pitchers against because you don't need the massive strikeout upside for 6,300 here for Williams. So he's fine as long as he's not 30+% again. I don't think he's going to look that much better than a guy like Duggar or Kelly for me, where I want to make a major stand on Williams. Any bats in this game at all?
I don't think so. Posey, I guess, is a decent value just because he's 3,300 and a catcher. Brandon Belt is okay, but taking hitters in this park is just never something that I really want to do.
Yep, I'll throw in Josh Bell, 4,500 there. Just a decent price for a guy that can hit it out of anywhere. So let's go to Cleveland and the LA Angels. Shane Bieber going up against Patrick Sandoval, not Pablo Sandoval. 11-7 for Bieber, highest price pitcher on Draftkings. On Yahoo, Bieber is at $52, $1 cheaper than Jacob deGrom. Sandoval, $26, 7-2 on Draftkings. What would it take for you to get to Bieber tonight in a tough matchup compared to a guy like deGrom? Because he's obviously going to have lower ownership, but it doesn't look like that terrible of a spot, at least from a run prevention standpoint. But do you think you get to Bieber at 11-7? It seems like you always seem to get there.
Yeah, I always get the Bieber. I think a lot will come down to ownership. Like I think that DeGrom projects better than Bieber does. And for that reason, he probably will be higher owned. We have a longer track record on him being a great pitcher and all that. But Bieber's numbers this year are just better than DeGrom's. His Sierra is a little bit better. His strikeout percentage is the same. His K minus BB percentage is better. And then you keep in mind that he's putting those numbers up while facing a designated hitter in most starts. So I don't think there's really a question on how talented Bieber is. It's not a great strikeout matchup against the Angels, but it's not a great strikeout matchup for DeGrom either. Mike Trout may or may not be in the lineup. You get some strikeouts towards the bottom with like Upton, Renhefo, and whoever's catching. I think that if he's going to be a lot lower owned than DeGrom, I will pivot some of my DeGrom to Bieber. But I think that DeGrom projects the best just because he's got a longer track record and he's facing a pitcher.
Yeah, Bieber has just been filthy this season, and the numbers match up between the two. Like the whip is super similar. Everything you mentioned, Sierra, xFIP a little bit higher. I'm sorry, a little bit higher for DeGrom. I was looking at FIP. Bieber's FIP is a little bit higher than DeGrom's, but xFIP, actually Bieber has the edge there. Home runs per 9, Bieber at 1.2 compared to DeGrom's 0.9. So these guys are essentially interchangeable, at least as far as how they've been this season. So if there is a big discrepancy, I would love to pivot some shares of DeGrom to Bieber. Like, let's say if Bieber is like 10% and DeGrom is 35 or 40, I think I would be overweight on DeGrom compared to, or I'd have a better chance of being overweight on Bieber compared to overweight on DeGrom there. Even in a really tough strikeout match, we've seen him have tough matchups and just dominate really tough teams. So if there's no Trout in the lineup, that's going to change a lot. We're probably not going to know until closer to lock. Maybe you won't even know until we get to lock. But I think Bieber makes for a really awesome pivot here off of DeGrom. Sandoval at 7,200 against Cleveland. I was just getting a ton of Cleveland stacks when I didn't cap ownership at all or exposures at all in Fantasy Cruncher this morning. Do you like the spot here for Cleveland?
I think, Sandoval's been decent, but I think that he's far from a finished product. You have pretty good hitters in the Cleveland lineup with Lindor, Santana, Puig, Reyes. Jordan Luplow looks like he's back. So that's another guy that has hit left-handed pitching really, really well this year. I think it's a dangerous spot for Sandoval. I think that, the park is decent for hitters. So I wouldn't put Cleveland with like Houston as far as teams that I like, but I do think it's a good spot.
Yeah. I just worry about their ownership here. Like, not that we're going to have guys that are like 25% owned, but I just think that when we do get ownership, it's going to be like everyone in this lineup for Cleveland's going to have a chunk, even if it's like 12% for Puig, 15 for Lindor. You've got like, I think Mercado's going to be in double digits on DraftKings. I think Santana's got a good chance to be in double digits as well. So I just think the stack is going to be super chalky. Even if you don't see high individual ownerships on guys. So I'd be looking to play like Lindor and Puig as 2-mans and 3-mans, but I don't think I'm going to get to where the field's at by the time we get to lock for the full stack. So this is going to be one that's very dependent on what the top stack tool says when we get that later today as well. Do you have any interest in playing Sandoval at all?
No, just a tough spot there. 4.9 implied run total. I don't think he's a great pitcher or anything like that. 27% strikeout percentage so far in the majors is solid, obviously, but I don't really see myself getting to him.
Fair enough. I don't think I will get there at all either. I'd rather just drop down to one of these other guys that we've already talked about, Williams, Duggar, Merrill Kelly even. Like, it's pretty ugly in this range above them. You've got Fire, Sandoval, Fulte, not guys that I'm overly interested in using. Let's move it on to, we're at the last game of the night. Cubs and Padres, 4.6 implied total here for the Cubs. 6 points, not 6.7. Cal Quantrill is 6.7K on DraftKings, 4.0 implied total here for the Padres. Do you have any interest in either pitcher, Hendricks or Quantrill?
Not really. Hendricks just doesn't strike out enough guys for me. He has a 21% strikeout percentage. I think that the matchup for Hendricks is fine. It's just that it'll be really difficult to roster him over Zach Greinke or Madison Bumgarner within a few $100s in either direction of his salary. So that's why I think Hendricks will just be tough to get into lineups. Like I think that Lyles is also in a better spot, and then or has more upside, I guess I should say. And then for Quantrill, he's been pretty decent since coming back from AAA, but he's facing a Cubs team that is good. Maybe we get a watered down Cubs lineup because of some injuries, but if we assume that it's going to be pretty close to their best lineup, then I don't think Quantrill is that appealing.
Yeah, I think this is my least favorite game. I don't think I want to play either pitcher from this game, and I don't know that I want to play a ton of bats either. The Cubs lineup is just good, but you've got Hendricks in a pretty favorable pitching park. Not San Diego, not a team I'm overly interested in playing against righties anyways. So maybe some one-off hitters here like Machado, just too cheap at 4,100 for a good hitter. And then on the Cubs, the guys I want to play, well, Schwarber especially, 5,200 there. That's tough to get to tonight. Maybe Rizzo at 4,800 or Chris Bryant if he's batting fifth. And even in the lineup, he's got a Q tag. So a lot of uncertainty in this Cubs lineup. Do you like hitters on either side?
I think left-handed power on the Cubs is in a pretty decent spot. 14.3% strikeout percentage for Quantrill, 193 ISO, 355 WOBA allowed this season. The problem is just exactly what you said, that Schwarber's really expensive. Rizzo's not exactly cheap, and that's about the extent of the left-handed power on the Cubs. And then for the Padres, Hendricks is good at preventing runs. Machado, I think, is a good value, but outside of that, they don't really have good hitters in their lineup. So it's kind of just an underwhelming game all around.
Yeah, agreed. We've gone through it. 8 games. Do you want to give a quick rundown of everything since we got done pretty quick? Who are the couple of top pitchers you're looking at tonight, and then a couple favorite stacks as well?
Yeah, so at the top for pitcher, obviously it's DeGrom and Bieber. I think that DeGrom projects a little bit better, but if he's going to get a lot more ownership in tournaments, then I think Bieber's a good pivot just because they do have basically the same ceiling. In the mid-range, I think that Greinke, Bumgarner, and Lyles are where I'll mostly end up. And then for value pitching, I really hope to just not get to too much of it, but Trevor Williams to me stands out above any of the other options. As far as stacks go, obviously Houston is a quality stack. I think that the Mets are good, especially if Kelly's going to get some ownership because of a cheap price tag. I think that both of the Yankees and Red Sox are in really tough spots, but there's a good chance that they don't get as much ownership as their talent levels suggest they should. And if that's the case, then they become interesting.
I will throw in I really do like the Yankees, not throwing in, you mentioned that game, but I think I'm going to have above the field on the Yankees tonight as a stack. Mets against Merrill Kelly. You mentioned the pitching. I 100% agree with you. Bieber and DeGrom at the top. A lot of it's going to depend on ownership. You've got Lyles, Greinke, and Bumgarner in that mid-tier. It looks like a pretty straightforward slate. I don't know that there's... and ownership could dictate what we're going to do, of course. So unless we see something weird for ownership, I feel like we've got a good grasp on what this slate offers. Want to mention Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports again, and then we'll kind of go over what you guys are going to see on the site for today, because it's kind of weird with the 2 Monday Night Football games as far as the show schedule. Yahoo is offering a $20 no management fee $1 million baller in week 2, so locks Sunday 1 Eastern. Nothing you guys aren't familiar with. It is a 150 max though, so we'll see if there is a CSV edit. Not exactly sure what's going on there, if you have to hand build or at least hand upload your lineups, but everything else, if you don't like the 150 max, you still got the 10 max, $3 no management fee. That looks like a really good tournament, similar to what they were doing with MLB for a while. The $1 10 max, low management fee there. They've got a bunch of other tournaments at different price points, so it's not just the 150 max. I know that's why a lot of people like to play on Yahoo, is because of the low caps for lineups in tournaments, and you're still not going to have to compete against many of the sharks while they're on other sites paying a ton of rake. Yahoo is offering, again, no management fee on a couple of their biggest tournaments. So As far as what we got going on for the rest of the day, NFL Strategy Show will be at 11 Eastern. So that will be with Manny Laura and Laffy. They will be going over some Fantasy Cruncher stuff. Manny is from Fantasy Cruncher, if you guys aren't familiar with him. They'll be going over and reviewing the Week 1 slate. It'll be a pretty cool show. Manny and Laffy have very good chemistry together. They do the show on Sirius XM Radio, so they'll be a good fit talking about everything that happened yesterday and possibly previewing what's going on tonight. Adam will have the deep dive out at around, I don't know, when do you usually get out? 3 Eastern, 2 Eastern, something like that?
Around 3. Maybe a little earlier today since there's only 8 games.
All right, and then we will have the deeper dive with Adam, Laffy, and Alex, I believe. And then it'll be an NFL live before lock tonight because of the doubleheader. First game locks at 7:10 Eastern. So normally we'll just have the MLB live before lock and then the NFL, but NFL is taking some precedent tonight because the contests are massive on some other sites. Anything else you got going on today, Adam?
Nope, I don't think so.
All right, another jam-packed day of content. Stick around on the Osmo YouTube channel for the NFL Strategy Show. That's going to be one you're not going to want to miss. Good luck tonight, guys. We'll see you back later.